This is the morning after. It's New Rock 104.1. Good morning. This is Skippy. Over the last few weeks, we've been giving away tickets to a woman that's coming to Visalia the end of the month. And I've been super excited about the fact that not only was it happening, but somehow, some way, I managed to get her phone number. She joins me on the phone this morning. Glennon Doyle, good morning.
Hi, Skippy. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I warned you the minute I called you, and it threw me off that it was you that answered the phone. I was like, Frances, you are a professional. You have talked to rock stars and things like that. Get your act together when you get Glennon on the phone.
Isn't it amazing how much we have to talk to ourselves to get through the day?
It is, and
I do the same thing.
I want to talk about that because, first of all, for those that are just hearing your name, you are a published author, an activist, a philanthropist, social media guru. I mean, I feel like Oprah is your BFF, and you're coming to Visalia to do a speech, to do something in the community. So can you explain to me what your public speaking presence is going to be like coming up on the 27th?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing about public speaking is just to do in a group, on stage in an audience, the same thing I tried to do in my writing, which is just provide safe spaces for people to talk about hard things and ask tough questions and laugh. And I don't know, just one of the things I've found that makes life a little bit easier is being with other honest people who will not pretend that it's easy, right? So I think of it as a huge family meeting everywhere I go, where we just sit down and talk about the hard stuff that we're not allowed to talk about in everyday life while we're pretending that we're fine.
Right. We're all pretending like we have our act together, but no one really does. And I think that's something I try and push from my mental health job to here on the air. We're really honest in our relationships here on the air. My partner Drew and I have known each other for 17 years. He's not here right now, but he's 10 years sober. I've been through my fair share of failed relationships and single parenting, and it's I think in those places where you find connection with people.
Oh, totally. It's so funny. We somehow got a memo that when we're hanging out with each other, we should pretend we're perfect and that everything's amazing, which is so interesting because I don't even like people that do that, right? Like, we think that that's going to make us liked. But what I've found is just, letting it all out. I've learned this way of being in recovery, actually. I got sober, 16 years ago, and what I found in recovery meetings were people that were being just freaking honest about all of it. And that's what was keeping them sober. So this way of life of just, bringing it all to the table all the time, it started out as a way to stay sober. And eventually, I guess my goal was just to turn the whole world into one big recovery meeting. So that's the other way these events kind of go, just like we're all in a circle at a recovery meeting, just being totally honest about what sucks and what's beautiful and how both can be true at the same time.
You actually have one of my favorite words, and I think you coined it. I never heard of it before, but brutiful. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
I think as a writer, words are so important to me, right? And it frustrates me that when we describe ourselves or our lives, we have to use one word or the other when really my experience is that everything is everything all the time. Like when my kids say they're, scared to go to school for the first day, we figured out that really they're excited and scared. So we call it skited. And we just butcher the language to try to be more specific. And I guess beautiful. I think the first word is that I was describing the day I got sober, which is the day I found out that I was pregnant. So I had been a drunk and a bulimic for, 20 years at that point. I became bulimic when I was 10, and it morphed into everything else. And I actually found that I was pregnant. I was sitting on a bathroom floor, holding a positive pregnancy test, completely hungover. And I just realized, if I want to have beautiful things in my life, then I have to also accept the brutal parts of life. Right? Because I had spent my whole life trying to avoid the brutal parts of life, like hard feelings, with food and booze. And so I figured out, I can keep doing that. I can keep numbing the brutal for the rest of my life, but I also will never be able to feel the beautiful parts. So at that point, I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just take all of it I'll take the brutal. I'll take because I want the beautiful. And that's what every day is for me. It's all, life, parenting, marriage, faith, sex, all of it. It's completely beautiful and totally brutal every day.
I had a similar experience, the whole eating disorder thing. And every time I look at my daughter, I remember the last time that I did the whole binge and purge thing, because I had to stop that the minute I got pregnant with her. And it got even worse. It got even worse when I found out she was going to be a girl. So I was like, I cannot handle passing this on one more generation, because in the mental health field, and I know you're really into being an advocate for that and for families and for connection, the trauma is perpetuated over generations, and there has to be a generation that decides this is it.
Yes, and that's so beautiful, isn't it? I'm just counting on, so the deal is I have nothing figured out, and I think it can be scary to raise a little girl when you're still trying to figure out, how to be a woman without all this crap attached to it. But what I do believe in is what you just said, that what I am committed to is feeling all of the pain of my life so that I don't have to pass it on. Because that is one thing that I figured out with addiction, is that, pain really is, it doesn't disappear. We either feel all of it, deal with all of it, and kind of transform it into energy, or we just pass it on. It's just a hot potato. So my kids aren't seeing a perfectly adjusted woman in the world any day of the week, but they are seeing a woman who's staying present and facing life on its own terms, and talking about her own struggles, so that I'm not just subconsciously passing it down.
I think, too, one of the things that you have advocated for is healthy co-parenting, even if parents aren't still married. And I just want to touch on that really quick on why you've made that so important, because we do have a lot of listeners. We have a very male-dominant audience, but there are many of us that are trying to co-parent with kids split between households or absent parents. And what would you say is just some key, a key thing or two to keep in mind?
Well, yeah, so I'm remarried to a woman. My ex-husband and my wife and I co-parent our little brood of 3 children. And I think that what I would say about it is that it feels to me like a constant battle between ego and personal hurt versus collective peace, right? That every day, it's the big things, it's the attitude we have towards each other, but it's the little things, like how do I act when he forgets to pack the soccer stuff and sends them over? How do I act when I'm 20 minutes late? It's not easy for me, because old stuff comes up for me, but I think we're just committed to, in all of those little things and big things, all right, what's the collective piece here? Well, and you know what? It's not just for the kids. Abby and I talk about this a lot. It is for the kids, but it's also for us. I don't want to live with that anger anymore. That's the beauty of divorce. If we're still going to live in that, then you might as well have just stayed together. So that's why I freaking got divorced. So, it's just kind of okay, now we're going to do this new way. I think there's a million narratives about how blended families have to be, with exes and and I don't know, I think some of it's not true, and I think we can create our own stories. I think our family it's none of it's easy, but it's a hell of a lot better than when we were pretending to be something we weren't. Our kids and they notice, man. They notice every time I swallow my pride and don't say something. They notice every time Craig does. It's just that constant battle of choosing the collective over the individual, I think.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you're interested, you can hit up my social media, look for Skippy and New Rock 104.1 to get tickets. I do have more to give away too, leading up to your show, your evening with Glennon Doyle in Visalia at the L.J. Williams Theater on Saturday, October 27th. And I'm sorry, I gotta hand it to myself because I didn't fangirl out too much this morning. So feel like a professional.
You are such a professional. I think you should look in the mirror and say that to yourself over and over again today. I will go do the same thing.
I'm very excited to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Skippy. Bye.